Greetings, welcome everybody to the Beers and Bodyslams podcast. Sitting across from me, he's got this whole town on lock. Good old JB.
Sitting to my left, the man that doesn't have a flashy entrance, but he's really good on the mic, Mr. Fluffy.
That's what she said.
That's right. And sitting across from me is a man who is the man who wears the same shirt to the man that is the man.
All right.
Me on that one.
All right. Awesome. That's great. That intro as it is, I'm telling you, we really do have a great show for you tonight.
I've been on cold medication for 2 weeks.
Yeah, tell me about it. We have a show. We're going to be talking about the good and bad of second and third generation wrestlers. We're going to be talking about some of the big hits and some of the ones that were not so great.
We covered all the hits.
We covered all the hits and all the you get what I'm saying. And we have a really good beer, shockingly good. I'm 2 for 2 this week, so we're going to talk about that and so much more when we come right back.
Awesome!
This is the Beers and Bodyslams podcast
I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
with your host, Mr. Fluffy,
Hello, ladies.
good old JB,
Booty-O's! They make sure you ain't booty.
and the Irish O'Leary.
There's only one word to describe you, and I'm gonna spell it out for you. A-A-W-S-T!
This is the only podcast bringing you craft beer and pro wrestling that really matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, E-Generation X proudly brings to you its WWF Tag Team Champion of the World, the Road Dogg Jesse James, the Badass Billy Gunn, the new.
And that's the bottom line, the Stone Cold said so.
Tell us about this beer we're drinking, Fluff,
From Lagunitias Brewery,
or Lagunitis.
or Lagunitias Brewery. And it's weird. The great about them is they actually have 2 breweries, one in California, one in Chicago. So they're actually split.
Keeping it local.
That's right.
Keep it on the low.
It's their Aunt Sally unique
It's Sally.
Aunt Sally. Unique dry hopped, sweet tart, sour mash ale.
Glad you said hopped and not humped.
That's what I was about to say. I thought he was about to say dry humped.
If this is Aunt Sally on the bottle,
She got potential.
He's got,
well, that's the
he's
kind
got
of
great potential.
that's the kind of Aunt Sally you see at a Christmas party and go, well, we may not be related.
We're what, third cousins, right?
We're like third cousin, you know,
I'm your fourth. I'm your nephew, four times removed.
or she comes up to you and goes, hi, you know, you were adopted, so you know.
Or it could be Bray Wyatt as Sister Abigail.
Oh, that's not
The
right.
incest angle.
Right.
We're bringing it back to the
Speaking
attitude
of second
era.
and third generation,
All right, so we're going to talk about our favorite second, third generation. I don't think there's a fourth yet, is there? Is there a fourth generation wrestler yet? There's second and
There's
thirds.
second and thirds. I don't think there's fourth yet.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. But we're going to talk about the good ones
The bad ones
and the okay ones.
and the in-between ones, the ones that have potential, the ones that are around.
We're going to talk about the hot ones and the ham and eggers.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so we'll do it our normal round robin-y style. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first this time.
Do it.
I'm going to go with one of my faves from the back in the day, Mr. Eddie Guerrero,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Latino Heat, Mr. Lie, Cheat, and Steal. I'm not ranking them necessarily, but he definitely is a top 3 on my list of second generation wrestlers. Obviously, I wasn't around when his father was wrestling, and I didn't really see much of his work in Mexico, but followed Eddie at a very early age in the WCW days. Was he ever in ECW?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Eddie was?
'cause I
Oh,
didn't,
yeah.
I didn't watch ECW, so
Oh, yeah, totally.
but I remember he had a style about him that was unique. And that was kind of before he got to WWE, and they kind of played on the Mexican stereotype,
Yeah.
you know, with the low rider and all that stuff. And
Low
He was just actually a good wrestler, in WCW with charisma.
Oh, yeah.
Go figure. And he kind of drew me in just from the beginning and followed his whole career. And, I don't think there was, many people happier for him outside of his family than I was when he first won his world title in WWE, because I never thought he would get that opportunity. So definitely for me, Eddie is one of my favorites, and he's definitely one of the top second generation wrestlers of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, he definitely made his family proud. He brought the Guerrero name to the U.S. I mean, it was always around a little bit, but he definitely brought it in a huge.
Well, I mean, they were legendary in Mexico, but
huge way.
Yeah, he brought it here, and like I said, he from where he started, like I never saw him as that guy. He was always a cruiserweight or U.S. champion. He never got the chance in WCW to be a world champion. Came to WWE, I figured he'd get lost in the shuffle or mid card, and
no, he became a superstar.
He was obviously good in the ring, but his charisma, it catapulted him over some people that were really good during the time he came in WWE. But like I said, Eddie's one of my favorites of all time anyway. But as far as second generation, he's definitely one of the tops on my list.
All right.
Sweet.
Cool. Irish, you want to go next?
Yeah, it's a toss up. I got two biggies.
Okay. Well, no, we're talking about wrestlers here. We're not talking about. Okay.
What are we not talking about?
What's in your pants? They're swollen. I'm sorry. We can just see it
What
from here.
in the world are we
What the hell are you talking about, man?
going?
You are cut off.
You got biggies.
Shut
You
your
said you
mic
got
off.
biggies. I don't know. I don't know where he's
Cut your
going.
mic off and go home.
Oh,
I am
boy,
home.
you're
I am home.
Fluffy,
I
you're
am
drunk.
home.
Anyway,
Again, cold medication, 2 weeks.
We're going to talk about my favorite third generation star. If you smell what The Rock is cooking. So here's a guy that walked out on stage, was pushed heavily, a la Roman Reigns, and was one of the few wrestlers that I can remember fans actually chanting to die, and turned him heel. And
wow, forgot about that.
They never looked back. Rocky Maivia, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who is the third generation. There's High Chief Peter Maivia.
Yep,
that was his grandfather, and then Rocky Maivia was his dad.
Yep, and his grandfather. An interesting note: his grandfather was actually the inspiration for the character design that The Rock played in Moana.
Yeah.
That was the character he plays. The physical look of him is based on his grandfather. He gave him his grandfather's picture, and he said, "This is what I want."
You're welcome.
And that was great. That was awesome.
I think the words you're looking for are, "You're welcome."
Yeah.
So anyway,
okay,
we don't. You didn't see the movie.
No, I actually haven't, but I heard that.
There's too many accolades to talk about The Rock. How incredible he was on the mic. His feuds with Stone Cold, his feuds with Chris Jericho, his feuds with DX, his feuds with Vince McMahon. Even he was an 8-time WWE champion. He's gone on now to become one of the most amazing.
Well, I was gonna say I miss him because I don't know what is he doing now. I haven't heard from him.
I don't know what he's doing.
Just besides taking over the world.
I don't know what he's doing. I feel kind of bad for him. He's looking kind of old, actually. He's got some gray in his beard.
Don't we all?
He's waking up early in the morning like all old people do and doing something or other.
When he runs for president someday.
Yeah, but The Rock was one of those superstars who just exuded, whether he was a heel or whether he was a face. Once he figured out his crap, no matter if he was a bad guy or a good guy, you could not watch him. It was fascinating.
He is the pioneer for modern day Hollywood for wrestler crossover.
Yep.
When he left, like Hogan dabbled in it. Others tried it.
Cena's tried it.
Piper did a little bit of stuff.
Cena wants to be The Rock.
Andre did a movie, but like for him to transition from that, because there was always a stigma attached to wrestlers, in Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
and they never took him seriously as actors. So when he went out there and he did the Scorpion King, and people were like,
that's horrible.
People were like, I don't think this is going to work. And he just kept doing it, and then for him to be on the Forbes list as the highest paid actor.
Yeah.
Well, he's taking over Hollywood.
And it's like, just to transition. So like within 5 years, he's got the Ballers. He's in everything.
Yeah.
And he's like the quintessential crossover star.
There were two things that The Rock did specifically, I think, that catapulted him. The first one was he went on SNL.
Yes.
And he lampooned himself. He had some wrestlers with him during the monologue, but he showed that he had serious A, acting chops, and B, comedy chops. And the second thing he did was one of his roles that he was in, one of his first roles was in, was it Get Shorty?
Yep.
And he played a homosexual character.
Yep. And he showed range.
And he showed that he didn't have to be your stereotypical
meathead,
musclehead guy. You know, kind of like the character that he was in The Rundown was kind of the same character that he was in Walking Tall. You know, those were
action stars.
Action. You know, I've got one-liners. I'm going to be a badass and all that good stuff. But when he goes into Get Shorty and he shows he's got a little bit of range, and then every time he's been in a movie, for the most part, he's shown poignant moments really, really well. I watched San Andreas the other day. Not the best movie I've ever seen, but there are several scenes I was like, I kind of get that.
Yeah,
he's pretty good
because he appeals to different audiences. You know what I mean? He's not just a wrestler. He can pull from different areas and appeal to everybody. Like, it's not just like wrestling fans aren't just the only ones going to watch him. Like, people like actually enjoy his personality, or women like the way he may look or whatever. He's getting people from all over and different walks of life.
He's in the Fast and Furious franchise.
He's
killing it.
He's a once in a lifetime crossover star.
If you haven't watched Ballers, he is amazing in Ballers and HBO. Ballers and HBO.
You're a sports fan?
It's a sport. And he's just great. And he plays an ex-NFL guy, and you buy every minute of it. He plays it perfectly. So, all right. So my first one, I'm actually going to go to
Roman Reigns,
a third generation wrestler. No, that everybody says is the prototypical. And it's Randy Orton. And I admit, as much as seems like he's bored in the ring now, at one point he was huge. He's got a lineage. I mean, you can't deny it. Bob Orton Sr. is his grandfather. Cowboy Bob Orton. The only thing with Bob Orton is we always feel bad for him because he's the only man in history that ever had a broken arm that never healed for like a decade now.
I hope. I know, right? And he had that little run-in with, was it Jinder Mahal?
Yeah.
I feel, our thoughts and condolences go out to the Bob Orton family that he heals from that serious arm injury. We're with you, Bob. You can do it.
But, between his run with Evolution, the Legend Killer gimmick where he was just taking people out.
That was arguably his best gimmick.
Legend Killer?
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. He's single-handedly created an amazing internet meme.
Yeah, exactly.
And I got to thank Michael Cole for that, too.
Yeah, oh, no. The RK out of nowhere. I mean,
watch out.
It was, but I mean, it's hard. It's sad now, though, because you watch him now and he just looks uninspired now.
He's phoning it in.
And he's phoning in, and but then you go back, if you go on the network and watch some of his older stuff, you go back to like the 2005, 2007s, early 2000 stuff. He was amazing.
True that.
I mean, he was just out there killing it. And the fact of, I look at Evolution as a perfect example. He stood his ground with Ric Flair and Triple H and an emerging Batista, and still came out looking amazing.
Yeah.
Was he the second youngest or youngest champion?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Lesnar's the youngest. It was him before.
He was second,
yeah. Right.
He's second. But yeah, everything he did at one point. I mean, again, he made the RKO amazing. As good as the Diamond Cutter is, he's got his own kick to it, and it's unique to himself.
Absolutely. Out of nowhere.
I mean, that's the thing. They still use it today. It's
Vintage Orton.
And the Viper and the whole angle, and he's really built up this allure about himself.
Yeah, what's amazing is especially as we start really unpacking, because I know some of the guys that are going to, and women too, that are going to be on the list coming up. These second and third generation guys came, and women, excuse me. When I say guys, I kind of mean that asexual.
All encompassing.
Yeah. Not only did they have to come out from underneath their parents' shadows, but they had to come up through a hard time because nobody had it given to them. Well, maybe Shane and Stephanie did, but they had to come up on their own and they had to survive. Some people have done really, really well.
Yep.
The Rock,
Randy Orton.
Randy Orton has. Some of the other people that we're going to name. Some people have not. And we'll talk about some of those too.
Oh, yeah.
My next one is Kurt Hennig, son of Larry the Axe Hennig.
That's right.
Kurt was he was great. The Mr. Perfect gimmick was one of my favorites growing up.
Yep.
We won't go into his utilization of during that time. What he obviously should have been a champion in my opinion, but it was a unique gimmick. He was great, a great talker. He was great in the ring. Kind of at the end, he had some lackluster years in WCW.
Right.
I think everybody had lackluster years in WCW at the end.
Well, the problem was they grouped him in the NWO, and it was he was just another cog in the wheel. He wasn't a standout performer.
Right.
And unfortunately, he's gone too soon. But one of my favorite performers of all time, Mr. Perfect. We talked about it before. Those skits were legendary. Kind of ahead of its time when they were doing like him shooting pool or shooting basketball or whatever it was. He kind of segues into my next one when we get back around, but he
I think I know where you're going.
Kurt was one of my favorites.
Go ahead, just take it.
Just take the positive. We talk about the negative.
Unfortunately, his son.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Curtis.
It just doesn't.
They tried it, and I don't. I'm trying to figure out where it went wrong for him. To be honest with you, I know they tried to pair him with Paul
Heyman
briefly. Him and Ryback.
Yep.
I think that was kind of where that was like the last ditch effort to try and get him over.
And now he's the Miz Taraj.
He was an Intercontinental Champion for a hot minute.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah. I don't know what's like. He doesn't have the personality. Yeah. He's not a bad wrestler. His charisma's not good.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say is I've seen a little footage of his grandfather or Kurt's dad, Larry the Axe. And Curtis wrestles more like his grandfather than his dad.
Right.
Partly he's bigger than Mr. Perfect was. Like he's got the body shape of his grandfather.
Right.
And it's a style that just doesn't work now. He's sort of slow and methodical in a lot of things he does. And in this current age of wrestling, that just doesn't really work really well. Right. And it's just hard for him to get over. And he doesn't have the vocal skills. He does nowhere near has the mic skills to overcome that ability.
Yeah.
I think putting him with, we talked about it on last Thursday's show. The Miz Taraj thing, as much as we really wanted that to kind of be the Shield guys, I think it does make sense to put those two dudes with the Miz, and they can learn a lot from him, and they can grow as wrestlers and performers. I was kind of excited for a brief moment when they were going to redo the Superpowers thing with him and Sandow.
Yeah.
I was really kind of excited about that because there was some momentum behind it, and then it's like, hey, Sandow's like not here anymore.
Yeah.
Alrighty then, I'm just gonna go do my thing then.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for him, but hopefully now that they've got him a little bit more on a better trajectory as part of the Miz Taraj, he's on TV every week. There's a plus. I mean, he's earning a paycheck.
Yeah.
There has to be a springboard at some point.
Yeah.
To carry him because at some point they're not going to keep him around.
Yeah.
If he can't draw or get people interested in him. But, obviously trying to live up to Mr. Perfect and the career his dad had, it's hard for
It's really
and
hard.
that's why a lot of people don't realize being a second, third generation, you're coming behind someone that's done it.
Yeah.
Well, and they were for the most part, they're successful, for 10 and 15 years.
Right.
Well, the other thing is, and I think a common thread we're going to find is, and it's nothing against people, is the people that have gone really, really huge, like the Rocks and the Ortons, they have overshadowed their parents when they were in the company or because, Rock's dad had a short run with WWE on independent stuff, and he did WWE, but he was never huge. Cowboy Bob was always a mid-carder and never massive. He was around.
Yeah.
So, but then we notice the people that are like a Kurt Hennig, it's tough to live under that. Like you can go over, it's easy if you have the talent to go over your parents because they were never, you're better than them and you can go to main event and they weren't. But when your parent was already a main eventer
right,
and an amazing in the ring, it's hard.
Right.
It's a much bigger shadow and a much darker shadow.
Well, let me dovetail off that and go to mine.
Yeah, go
next pick. When your dad arguably is the greatest of all time,
Okay.
and you have to come in as his daughter.
That's one of the exceptions.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair is the exception to that rule.
Yeah.
Does she have the capability of outshining her father? Maybe. It's going to really deal with the longevity and how they book her for the rest of her life. But
her only advantage is and I'm not picking on her, but her advantage is if she can do it, she can do it in the women's division.
Mm-hmm.
And she can be the greatest women's wrestler of all time to go along with her dad being one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, male wrestlers of all time.
Absolutely. She's got all the skills she needs. She's learning. She's probably arguably one of the best heels, and at least the best heels in the women's division. Maybe she's tied with Alexa a little bit, but she's amazing. She's got skills. She's got all of the positive traits about her dad, and hopefully very few of the negative traits. But she's one of the exceptions to the rules where she's coming out, she's having to come out from underneath that shadow, and she's done really, really well with it. And it's a lot of pressure, and she seems to be handling it, like a pro, like a queen.
She's very driven, it seems like. And the thing with her is like she never wanted to really get into the wrestling business.
She wanted to be involved.
Her brother was that was his dream.
Yep.
Reed. And when he passed, it kind of, I was listening to an interview she did, it kind of lit a fire under her.
Right.
And you can just see like the passion, everything she's doing is basically to honor him.
Yeah. She wanted to be an Olympic volleyball player. Yeah, that was her goal.
Well, she was a Division I college.
Yeah. And that was her plan.
Yeah.
She played in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That was her plan. Then it all sort of changed.
And I think even now, with the scare with her father, it's even more energized her.
Oh yeah.
Now that she's back, it's just
totally
to give everything you have every night. But she's going to be, if she's, in my opinion, she's almost there now.
Yeah,
arguably the greatest women's wrestler of all time. But
I agree.
Yeah, she's right there.
One more good title reign, and she'll solidify herself as that.
So, all right, I'm going to give you a twofer. I'm going to give you.
Why not? I did.
But I'm going to give you one that's
2 cold pills.
We hope is living potential, and we don't know what's wrong, and one that is fallen on the potential. It's Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas.
No,
third generation wrestlers. The Wyndham family. Everybody knows. Their grandfather, Blackjack Mulligan, is a legend amongst legends. I mean, everybody knows that, and it's one of the names that people know who've watched wrestling for more than a decade. But Bray. Sometimes his problem is writing and not him. He's still a great performer, and I hope he does better. But Bo, man, I don't know what's missing. He was NXT for a long time.
He's a hot mess. That's the problem.
He came in, and his original gimmick of the whole, motivational speaker, the Bo leave, had potential to go over and just sort of fell flat.
It was over in NXT, right?
No, he didn't do that gimmick in NXT.
Really?
No.
All right.
He did a little bit.
Towards the end.
It was near the end, and it was more of an entrance thing. He didn't. It wasn't the motivational speaker thing he did when he got to the main roster.
Right.
It was there. It was I believe in myself kind of thing.
Right. Gotcha.
And then it just sort of fell. And it's sad because, he's a performer. Okay, when we use the Miz Taraj example. Physically in the ring, he is a lot better wrestler than Curtis Axel. I know he can perform. I've seen him run in his NXT matches. He can have amazing matches.
Right.
But there's a disconnect there. And I don't know what it is.
Well, I think part of the reason there's a disconnect is look at what happened when they went into the Miz Taraj gimmick. Curtis Axel came out dressed in suits.
Yep.
Pushed his look a little bit, tightened the beard up, tightened the hair up a little bit, did a little bit of an adjustment. Bo Dallas did very little. Didn't cut his hair.
Nope.
Kind of went with a grungy biker gimmick. I know that his theme was kind of like, New Hollywood, Johnny Depp, greasy, that kind of biker bar Hollywood type. Really, honestly, and this is me just being a jerk, but if he'd have cut his hair and tightened everything up and followed like Axel to where they look like $1 million, I think that probably would have helped him. He needs to radically transform everything about him, from what he wears to the ring in regular clothes to what he wears in the ring, his ring gear, to how he presents himself. Because all I'm seeing is Bo Dallas is a Miz Taraj.
Yeah.
Maybe a little higher grade trunks, but that's about it. There's not enough of a change there for me to believe that for me to believe that he's really done anything different other than just aligning himself with the Miz.
All right.
So I'm
JB?
gonna go back to my old WCW days, and if there's a such thing, I'm gonna say he's arguably probably the greatest mid-card wrestler.
David Arquette.
I'm saying it lovingly. Tully Blanchard.
Oh,
yeah. He never won the big one, but he dominated that mid-card, the upper mid-card in WCW.
Him and Arm were the greatest tag
What
team.
generation was he?
Second
Generation.
Joe Blanchard wrestled in AWA. His dad. He was one of my favorite heels of all time.
Oops.
He could draw out emotion. And I was probably 10, 11 years old when I first started watching them with the Horsemen. And I remember on national TV when he actually slapped Baby Doll, who was his manager at the time. And I was like 11 years old. I'm like, damn, he just slapped the hell out of his girlfriend. Like he like drew an emotional reaction out of me at 11 years old. And I loved the Horsemen at the time, but that moment I was like, holy shit, this dude is a jackass. Like,
Yeah.
And then his matches, if he was one of those guys, you either loved him or hated him.
Right.
And like people that were in his matches, he would make you feel like the guy was literally trying to kill him. You know what I mean? Like you if you didn't like him, you hated him personally. Like you wanted to see harm done to him. Which made him a great heel.
Those
in my
were the
opinion.
days.
Yeah.
My first exposure to Telly, and again, this is from being from the North, and you guys are from the South, was
Yankee.
I know was when he was the Brainbuster with Arn Anderson, and they were when they came in, they were an amazing team.
Right.
I mean, that was just insanely fun between having Bobby with them, but they wrestled a style that wasn't WWE style.
Right.
They came in with the NWA style, the WCW style, and just kept it.
Yep.
And just pounded and pounded. Something that the Revival does now, it's the same idea, is, no flips, all fists. And they would just beat the crap out of people.
But do they go hard all day, all night?
According to some of the stories, yes, they do.
Well, now we get to see if the third generation, Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah, I hope she makes it.
I think she's going to
She's already in NXT.
Yeah.
She's in NXT.
Oh, she in NXT?
Oh yeah,
She was
wrestled with the.
I heard
the
she was
women's
going
thing.
to the Global Force.
Oh, Global
really?
Force?
Yeah.
She might. She never signed. I don't think she signed a contract. She did Mae Young. And
I think
she
she's going to Global Force.
So, all
Oh,
right.
that'd be a huge mistake.
All right, Irish, who you got?
Well, I'm the guy that brought up the Ric Flair thing. I'm looking at the whole the Tessa Blanchard thing. I'm sorry because I'm a nerd like that.
Okay. Do you want me to go instead and come back to you?
Nope. Actually, I'm good.
Okay.
Actually, where's she at? It doesn't say. Oh, here it is. She is currently, if Wikipedia is to be believed, she is World Wonder Ring Stardom, and she's been on Lucha Underground.
Yeah, she's been a couple of different places. I don't think she
that's
signed.
tragic.
She didn't sign with NXT. She was there for a very short time.
Launched on that. All right, so I talked about Ric Flair. You can't talk about Ric Flair without talking about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty's got two
No, he
good-looking
doesn't.
boys.
He has no kids. No kids.
Dusty Rhodes.
They've been erased.
Dusty Reynolds has got two.
They've been erased from the record books.
He's got the one Gold Dust. Dustin Reynolds. I'm telling you, man, Dustin Reynolds was married to Terry.
Yeah.
Marlena.
He has had, if he's going to go down
She still look good.
as one of the most amazing careers ever.
Yes.
The fact that he's been able to hang on this long and not even hang on, he has better matches.
Still relevant.
Yeah.
It's still relevant and has better matches now than guys half his age.
That is true. He got clean. He's wrestling better. He's still kind of keeping the gimmick going, which is kind of little, but it's better than when he takes the face paint off. Just he needs to
No,
always
you
he needs something.
Yeah.
But then
He needs something.
he can't
He needs
deny. You cannot deny the incredible talent that is the American Nightmare, Cody, formerly known as Cody Rhodes.
The man that has gone to the Indies.
That's his government name.
His government
Cody.
name.
Is now signed with Ring of Honor
And government name.
and is at the top of the
Slave
list.
name is.
He's the slave name. He is the top wrestler right now on the list of the best wrestler in the world that's not in the WWE. Him and
Kenny Omega.
And Kenny Omega are that list. Like right now, if you were to say
And Okada.
Speaking of which,
all right,
we got some work to do after the show.
But I would say that yeah. But I would say that Cody has done amazing work. He is hysterical on being the elite.
Yeah, he's
and there's weeks that I don't even like watching the videos. Like the last one that just ran, he wasn't in it, and it kind of was like, oh, where's Cody? Like I find myself now watching the videos waiting for Cody.
And he's got probably arguably one of the hottest wives on the planet, Brandy.
Yep,
Brandy
Rhodes.
Brandy Rhodes. What was her name in WWE?
I forget. Brandy. My dress fell off.
No, it wasn't Brandy. It was.
I don't remember.
She had she was a ring announcer.
Wasn't her name Brandy?
No, it wasn't Brandy. Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, so who would have thought that somebody who was jobbing out as Stardust had the porn stash for a long time? Then he had the faceplate.
Oh, the faceplate was hysterical, though.
You know, and everybody's looking at him as like a comic wrestler would come out of that, and then he would strategically book himself all across the world, and basically it's taken the world by storm.
Yeah, he's become the hottest thing in the Bullet Club.
Absolutely the hottest thing.
And in a group that involves Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, that's saying a lot.
Yeah. And he's just amazing. And he's really learned a lot of the backstage, the art of running a business. And he's gotten a lot better about a lot of things. And you can tell his wrestling matches are amazing. Yeah. His commentary, the mic work that he's doing is unbelievable. I wish that he could get his last name back, but I think that they worked around it and just calling himself the American Nightmare. Yeah. And
it's perfect.
It's just perfect.
No pun intended.
No missteps yet.
Nope. All right. My next guy is a guy that is never on the list of when people mention second generation wrestlers, and I've known it for a while. He is, but it's his dad doesn't get the credit. It's Randy Savage. Randy Savage is Angelo Poffo was a very well known wrestler in the 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously we know about his brother Lenny, but you never hear whenever people talk about second and third generation wrestlers. Very rarely do you hear Randy's name come up.
Yeah, I know,
and I think it's because his dad was huge, but at a time when wrestling was still so small. Yeah. And he was all territories, and he never made it to the WWE or anything like that, and NWA and anything like that. But he learned from his dad. I mean, you know, and Savage is arguably one of the top 5 wrestlers to ever live. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, you know, talker wise, Jesus, cream of the crop is still, it was a promo he did once. And people bring it up continuously because it is one of the greatest promos of every time. You look up on YouTube, cream of the crop, Randy Savage.
He actually had a coffee creamer.
Oh, the fact
it's like a freaking magic trick.
He kept bringing them out.
It was so funny.
It was one of the, him and Mean Gene, when he just kept spinning them, I'm the cream of the crop, and throws that one away, and then goes, the cream, and pulls out another one.
It's like so funny.
It is amazing.
You know, he's a minor league baseball player.
Yeah, he was with
the Reds.
No,
he was with the Reds.
Cardinals.
He was with the Reds.
He was in the Cardinals farm system.
He was with the
Reds for a short time too.
So I was right.
Ooh, yeah, don't argue.
You're talking about it like I'm wrong. And he was with the Reds too.
Fine, I'll give it to you. But and he's a guy that learned how to morph himself. He went from Intercontinental Champion to finally getting the big belt. Some of my favorite times with him was the King Macho gimmick.
King. Yeah,
I love the Macho King.
Yeah,
God, that was fun. That was just him having a good time. Like you could tell he just enjoyed that.
Yeah, my favorite time with wrestling. Oh yeah, I was Miss Elizabeth.
Yep.
Oh, I was going in some matches with her. Oh, even inside of the ring. Oh, dig it.
Yes.
I'll tell you, I do have to say that I was traumatized by Randy.
You were traumatized by Randy?
Yeah,
How were you traumatized?
He was wrestling Jake the Snake, and I still have that vision of that snake
bit on the arm,
locked onto his arm. I will never forget that as long as I humanly live, and I am traumatized by that for life.
All right, so you want to do one more round?
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna go Owen Hart.
Oh,
he had a world of potential. He had a lot of ups and downs in his career. They wasted him I think the last 2 years that he was in WWE.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had a potential, like the Blue Blazer was crap.
Yeah.
They had a lot of potential with the feud with him and Brett. They had a good match, but I think that could have been better. They put him in Nation of Domination, which was dumb. But he was really, really talented. He was kind of overshadowed by Brett, but pure like wrestling fans that know the product, they know that he had a lot of potential and was good at what he did. Unfortunately, he came through at the time where his brother was at the top.
Oh yeah.
So he kind of fell back and kind of took a second fiddle to him. But I was a big fan of Owen Hart, man. He was really good in the ring. He had a lot of he had surprisingly good humor. He didn't show it a lot.
My favorite part with him was when he was the Slammy Awards. He would walk out to the ring with the Slammies, and like they were the greatest things in the world. And he would just run around with them. They were great.
When he was with the Hart Foundation, they were feuding with DX. I think that was some of his best work.
Yeah,
because it allowed him to show a funnier side sometimes when Shawn and Triple H would kind of go at him. He kind of would go back at him, and it just showed they gave him more time to talk. And it was tragic, obviously. How it ended for him, but he was one of the ones that was very underrated and never got unfortunately the opportunity to shine like he should have.
What I think about him that he had over Brett, because they were both great in the ring and they may have been almost equal. Like there was more.
He was more popular,
but what believe it or not, what he had over Brett is Brett was always controlled and quiet. And Owen really owned that sort of mantic craziness, that over-the-top anger. Like when Brett would get angry, you never really bought it. Brett would be like, I'm mad at you. Although when Owen would get angry, he'd be like, and he would start spitting and screaming, and you felt it. You felt the frustration in him. Yeah. So that's why Owen always had that emotional piece that Brett never had.
I cannot tell you why, but I seem to remember in my head back in the day, I always thought that Owen was a little bit better of a wrestler than Brett. Just a little bit. I think that he had the edge on a couple of things that Brett didn't. But
I think the fans enjoyed his personality more.
Yeah.
I know he was more popular.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I don't know. Like Brett was damn good in that ring.
He was. I'm not.
No, you're not putting him over.
I mean, he's the best. The best there is, the best there
he
was,
lacked
the best there will
charisma.
be.
Brett didn't really have charisma.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where the thing was.
Brett the Hitman was a star in spite of his lack of that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know what it was, but he figured out how to make.
Because he can make anybody look good in that ring.
That's right. That is true.
Yeah.
I will say, I will go with my next choice. Two guys.
Okay.
That I'm not super over. They're super talented. I'm not going to lie. They're talented. I just don't really like their characters. Although when they turned heel is probably the greatest thing they ever did. But I'm talking about the sons of Rikishi.
The Usos.
Jimmy and Jay, the Usos. You talk about two dudes that far surpassed the level of their father.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nothing against Rikishi.
No.
But Rikishi was only Intercontinental Champion. And these two dudes.
Well, he was saddled with the crap gimmick.
That is true. But when your signature move is a stink face.
Yeah, exactly.
But Jimmy and Jay got fan support. Got behind, the fans got behind them because of the whole, their heritage, and they were colorful and they were great. And then when they turned heel, man, they took it up a notch. They've had some hits and misses. They seem to be kind of back on the road. But those two dudes, man, I'm telling you, and they're just damn likable. Like when they were on, Total Divas. When they were making out and doing stuff on
Represent Orlando.
Oh yeah,
proud.
That's right. Was it Cena's bus? Whose bus were they on? They said no making out on the bus.
It was Cena's bus.
Cena's bus.
Yeah,
I don't watch. So I have no idea.
I watched the first few seasons, and then I stopped watching it. But yeah.
But I like them. I think they're good workers. I think they super talented. My favorite move is I can't remember if they both do it or just one of them does it. But when they jump off the top rope and they put their shoulders back, their arms back, and they just kind of fly like that. Oh, that's just a heck of a good looking move. Just super talented guys, man.
Hall of Fame tag team.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. First round.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to bring up a couple guys that My last two were sort of two that never really lived up to potential. And I'm going to give you two for just because I want to get them both in. And they're both from legendary families. Brian Lawler and David Flair.
Oh man, where are we going with this one?
No, I'm saying this is two guys that, and I'll use Charlotte's example, that David just never clicked. Never caught
Well, he was with the wrong company.
it. It just never worked. It never
No, he wouldn't have made it. Like, just for him, like, unfortunately for him, he didn't have either one going for him.
Right. Yeah.
And he the problem was because of his name, they kind of pushed him into a situation where he wasn't ready for.
Yep.
There was no developmental back in WCW for him to go to.
That's not true.
They had Power Plant wasn't.
It wasn't developmental. It wasn't like a territory.
No,
that is. It was just basically training. And
it was like you go learn how to wrestle, but they wasn't like
Right, not like it is today.
it's like a gym.
Yeah.
You know, what
Right.
I
It was a
mean?
gym.
Like,
It wasn't a territory.
Yeah, not
yeah.
like it is today.
So
fair
like
enough.
they kind of like fast tracked him when he clearly wasn't ready for
Fair
it,
enough.
and he
Fair enough.
kind of crashed and burned really fast. And
Yes, he did.
Got overwhelmed, and that's what happens. But had he come up in today's NXT era, maybe things would have been different. But
yeah.
the David Arquette killed him.
Oh, yeah.
instantly.
God, David Arquette.
And then
bastard.
Brian Lawler.
Don't you mean Scotty too high?
Yeah.
No, he's
He's
too cool.
he's too cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
A guy that, again, the name alone will take you far. I mean, the King is a legend. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, there's the reason he's the King of Memphis. The reason he's, when he shows up on stuff now, you get excited. But it is, a guy that had the body, had the look, seemed to have the in-ring ability, but got saddled with that Grandmaster Sexay
That's it.
Oh,
thing with Too Cool and Scotty Too Hottie, and just never really went anywhere. And yeah, there were some questions about his ability to
Extracurricular.
he may have not been able to control himself outside the ring for a while.
What are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, but a guy that, again,
Allegedly.
if you look at it,
yeah.
if you look at it on
We don't
paper,
want any
you're
letters.
like, how is this guy not still with the company, and how is this guy not a huge either mid card or at least somebody?
Well, I think it boils down to a tale of two different people's choices. Look at like a Charlotte Flair.
Okay,
The brass ring is presented. She took it,
Yeah.
did all the work that she needed to do to excel and succeed. And then you look at what Brian did, and he didn't do all the work. I mean, he was it was great, and he was over with the crowd. But, if I was dancing around like an idiot and, doing a worm with my partner and all that good stuff, I mean, I'd probably get over it too, but I wouldn't be taken seriously.
yeah, and that was the problem.
Some of that, I mean, when you have that big of a bigger shoes to fill and that to live up to, like
Yeah.
a lot of people can't handle that pressure. You know what
True.
I mean? So it's like at some point, it's like everybody's going to always compare him to his father, and it's like I'm not him. Like I'm never going to be as good as him.
Yeah,
And like he just probably couldn't handle the pressure. And he's like, this isn't for me. Like I can't deal with it because you want me to be the second coming of Jerry Lawler, and I'm not
Yeah.
ever going to be that. So, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It takes a strong-minded person to follow in a successful parent's shoes. Whether it's business or whatever, and wrestling or whatever in life
That's right.
it's not easy to do. So
Because if you don't do that, you don't do what you have to do to go past the
I agree.
shadow. You're gonna get got.
exactly.
Where's he been?
I think.
Future Indifferent?
Yeah, I don't know where he is now.
No,
I'm kidding.
I know Scotty Too Hottie's a firefighter in
No,
Orlando.
bro. I'm talking about.
No, I'm saying is I don't know where.
I'm talking about R-Truth.
Oh, R-Truth?
You gonna get
Oh,
got.
he is. I think he's doing the laundry for the Superstars.
Oh man.
I think he's in the back. So
He'll be an agent or something.
yeah. So I really liked Aunt Sally. It was really good. I enjoyed the hell out of it. That was a good beer.
I
So
enjoyed the hell out of Aunt Sally.
Aunt Sally's hot.
That
So.
sounds like a redneck family gathering.
What'd you do?
Another day with Fluffy.
I drink some nice Aunt Sally. So
Got me some Aunt Sally. She done got.
as we said, next week we're gonna do some best of episodes. We're gonna do 2 episodes that we think we're gonna regret, but we're gonna do them anyways. We're gonna have 2 episodes of bold predictions we've made. We did one in January, we did one in April, and we're gonna run them both back on Monday and on Thursday this week because we've got some stuff going on.
You're gonna get got.
When you're ready to put your beers down.
Beer, don't be David Flair.
Oh, wow, that was low.
Oh, man.
Make sure you head over to vintagepressing.com, vintagepressing.com, where you can get drink coasters, luggage tags, phone cases, and more.
Make sure you visit us over on Facebook at facebook.com/beers and Body Slams podcast. You can see all of our posts, all of the things that we do. You can interact with us over there, and come find us over at beersandbodyslams.com. You can find our show archives. You can find all of our great sponsors. Click on one of those guys, support them because they support us.
That's right.
Follow us on the wonderful Untapped app. There's literally thousands of beers you can browse and rate.
And that's just in Fluffy's list.
No, I'm not that high yet.
You can follow me as I give my liver the brain buster at good OLJB.
You can follow me at Mr. Fluffy as I am on my 3rd generation of kidneys.
He ain't lying.
And you can follow me as I do the Samoan drop on my liver at the Irish O'Leary.
As always, make sure you keep your pint glasses full and your body slam still.
You've been listening to the Beers and Body Slams podcast. Find us online at beersandbodyslams.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Beers and Body Slams podcast. Until next time.
Have a nice day.